Hello and welcome back to Premier Injuries, where today we're talking all about the Euros. It is your Euro data show. This is going to be a nightly thing until the end of the tournament, giving you daily analysis of the insights and all the context of why the results are happening, who the best players are, and which assets you should be looking at. But before I get into the analysis, I'd like to invite you to join the community here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, join in with the comments as well below, and like and share the videos. It really helps us out here, and it helps us to know if you are finding this useful. But without further ado, let's go into the first fixture. So that first fixture, it's all about football's coming home, isn't it? It's the three lines, England versus Croatia, with that 1-0 win. And the three lines themselves put in a solid victory that probably calmed nerves and also broke a bit of a hoodoo on the team in terms of a 9-game winless record in opening fixtures at European Championships. They'd never done it before, but today they did. What I would say is that the performance was unspectacular. It wasn't amazing. They got the job done, but there are quite a few questions. They start the game with a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and they created a few chances, but the first half came up short. Then it took a bit of magic from Sterling to break the deadlock, and actually that was the only goal of the game. But in terms of the team and some of the data as well, the starting lineup for England, I don't think actually appeased or allayed any of the worries that people might have about who is going to be in that starting 11. The fact that there was no recognised left back, and the fact that Trippier was deployed there instead of somebody like Chilwell or Luke Shaw adds to worries of who Southgate favours, how he's going to approach games, whether it will be a match-by-match situation. In terms of this, then, this might mean that Gareth Southgate kind of alters his tactics in terms of each game that he's going into. He might play Trippier as a left-back in certain games, but he might deploy Chilwell. It's really all up in the air at the moment. I think it's almost added more questions than answering that many at all. This just makes me secure that Kane, Maguire, when he is fit, and John Stones are probably the only assets that I would consider for now. But yes, as stated, the deadlock was broken by Raheem Sterling. Calvin Phillips, though, I have to give a shout out. He was absolutely brilliant. Probably man of the match out there today, doing so much in terms of the metronome in attack, but also defensively brilliant as well, blocking out so many opportunities. Then looking at the data, where I've started off the discussions, I've kind of said that England kind of got to victory, but it wasn't that impressive. And the numbers show this. The three lines did not create a lot of chances, only 5 in a match, but 2 of them were big. They're also good at creating high XG opportunities. 2 shots had more than 0.6 XG in total. So they did beat Croatia fairly in terms of metric scores. They had a 1.49 XG to Croatia's 0.37. But there was limited opportunities. There wasn't that many chances. And I think one of the big worries coming away from this game as well, Harry Kane was substituted in the 80th minute. Wasn't for any other reason. I think that they were just resting him, but he had a super quiet game. It made me worried that he wasn't too much involved in the attack. He was in terms of his runs. He was fantastic in terms of creating opportunities for other individuals, and that's good for the England team. That could mean great results, but in terms of fantasy assets, he only had 1 shot. This was a 0.66 XG shot, but still it wasn't that convincing that he was too involved. He could grow into other games. This is obviously the first game of the tournament. He's going to be at the centre point of so much of that attack. But I think there's got to be mixed feelings. In terms of the creativity of the side as well, Mount was the best in terms of expected assists with 0.72. But the chances were few and far in between. Mount and Calvin Phillips drew on 1 big chance created and 1 chance created in total. Not many at all. And the wingers weren't too involved as well. Kind of, we've seen classically with Southgate, a lot of the play, a lot of the build-up, a lot of the creativity comes from the defenders. I'm not sure if that was because of the way that they were told to play, maybe a bit more defensive so that nothing negative happened in this first performance. But the fact that Trippier had 0.03 XA and Kyle Walker had 0.01, it'll be interesting to see if they're given more of a license to go forward in future matches. So yeah, but the positivity that I would say is that England weren't solely reliant on set pieces to create and score goals like in the 2018 World Cup. You genuinely could see them scoring from open play. They had some good shots, and so that will be really positive, almost adding to their arsenal. We know how good they are on set pieces, and I think a lot of teams will struggle to defend that. A lot of teams don't take that too seriously. So that is brilliant, and hopefully Southgate has kind of found that extra ability. Switching attention to Croatia though, they gave a pretty poor performance. The fact that they only had 0.37 XG shows that they were limited in opportunities. Their best expected assists, actually ironically talking about England's kind of lack of wing-back action, came from Simi Varashko. He had the best XA in the team, and he and Modric drew on chances created. Whereas up top, but Rebic actually had the best Croatian opportunity of the match with a 0.13 XG shot in the 65th minute. So almost 1/6 of the quality of the best shots that England were taken. Overall, 3 shots in the box, no big chances created is a big worry there. And the side did lack creativity. I think they're lacking a lot because of the individuals that are no longer in the squad. This is definitely a team in transition, and going through the tournament, I don't hold too much hope and positivity. So probably the big hope for them is that they can get some results, finish second or third in the group and get through that way. But after that, I don't really see them going much further than the round of 16. The next game of the day that we have to talk about, and I think this one was much more fun, much more interesting, was the Austria-Macedonia fixture. I think a lot of neutral football fans out there were given a bit of backing to Macedonia, and dreams almost came true because they did score that 1 goal. They did hold Austria for a large stretch of the match, and I think we're all kind of taken back to the 2010s where football was more simpler. Guardiola was still at Barcelona playing beautiful football, and of course Jose Mourinho had that fantastic season with Inter Milan with 2010 because Goran Pandev was on the score sheet in a top European competition. It was such a nostalgia trip. But Austria managed to fight back. They made history as well with their first ever win at a European Championship match. But as stated, Macedonia showed fight. They can be proud of their performance and maybe could be a thorn in the side of some big sides. But in terms of the game, in terms of who was selected, Bachmann started in goal. So for a lot of people that will be good, especially in fan team because he was a 4.0 goalkeeper. But he did make a big mistake. Also, Alaba, disappointingly for a lot of people, was deployed as a centre-back. In the game, though, he distributed nicely. He did make some bombing runs forward. But for those who brought him in as a mid in Fantasy Euro, I think a lot of money has been wasted there. He seems to have that ability in fan team to possibly get a clean sheet, possibly get an attacking outlet. But you kind of severely reduced his points by putting him as a midfielder. There was a stunning goal to open the match from later. Only Austria's second ever open play goal in European Championship history. But my God, what an open play goal to score. It was fantastic. Lovely ball delivery into him. And then that touch into the back of the net. As mentioned, Goran Pandev scored and became the second oldest scorer in European Championship history. But Macedonia's resolve was broken. 2 goals scored into the second half by 2 substitutes. And we will get onto that in a second because I do want to focus actually on Austria's ball playing ability. They looked really good, lots of possession, control of the ball, and some nice passes. But for me, a standout thing was actually that with 2.08 XG, Austria had the second highest XG of the tournament so far in a single game. So obviously contextualise that with the fact that they were playing Macedonia, but this was a Macedonia team that didn't give them an easy time. There was a side that were creating high quality opportunities, lots of lovely balls. They didn't outshoot Macedonia by too much, 10 shots to their 7 and 7 shots in the box of Macedonia's 5. But for me, amazingly, Austria also had the most big chances in a match in the game, in the tournament so far, with 4 big chances. So this shows that there is quality in the side, but it will have to, be looked at going further if they continue that against bigger opposition, because in the build-up to this tournament, they did have a 4-0 loss to Denmark. So that could have been a blip, or that could be indicative that they can beat lower-ranked teams, but when they face teams of similar opposition strength, they are not all that good. Somebody who I picked as maybe an individual who might have a standout breakout tournament was Kalajic. He will be kicking himself over the missed shot, which was a massive 0.6 XG miss. He played a fairly good game, and we shall see if he grows into the tournament, but he had an opportunity without Arnautovic on the pitch to kind of prove himself, so we will see how he continues through the tournament. But he could be improved by Arnautovic as well, because when he came on, my goodness me, he massively impressed me. He was all over the pitch, he was getting involved, 0.46 XA, 0.27 XG, and of course he scored that goal, which he looked very angry about. I think maybe it was a message to the manager that he should have been played or something like that. But in terms of it, that meant that Arnautovic had the second best minutes per chance created of any player in the tournament so far. Alaba, as I said, he impressed. Fan team, I think you can be fairly secure because he had 1 big chance created, 2 chances in total, and a 0.24 XA created. And of course, he got the assist as well. But in terms of Fantasy Euro, I think that you should be spending your money elsewhere, because as a midfield option, he's not going to get you too many points. The assist, obviously, he's an integral part of that attack, but the problem is that is just kind of a cherry on top for a defender. You want the bread and butter of those clean sheet points, and he's not going to be getting that in terms of it. Hopefully Austria do keep more clean sheets in these other games. We shall see if they can do it against Ukraine or Holland. And this was the sort of game that you'd expect him to do it in. So even then, the opportunities for him will be limited. But I think that the ceiling is so much higher when Alaba is a defensive asset like he is in Fan Team. Moving on to Macedonia, though, they can be proud. They had a lot of good moments in that game. But obviously for me, the big worry is the quality of the squad, and the fact that their best performer for XG is the 37-year-old Pandev means that I don't think that they can really be hopeful of going much further in the competition. They can be happy that they broke the deadlock, that they actually scored a goal, that they had a few shots and did cause problems at times, but overall they were outplayed, and maybe fitness or maybe just quality meant that Austria then pushed on and got the 3 goals towards the end of the match. I wish them the best of luck, but I wouldn't be looking at their assets. But Austria might have some interesting ones if they can continue this high quality output. Then into the final game of the day, and one of the most exciting games that I've seen for a long time, the 3-2 Ukraine game, in terms of Netherlands beating the Ukraine by 3-2. This was the most exciting game of the tournament so far, but what I would say as well was there was quite a bit of luck on the Netherlands side, maybe a little bit on the Ukrainian side as well. Not very high XG opportunity goals that they scored. Starting off though, before the game, De Boer kind of continued upsetting a lot of individuals, and this time round it was the fantasy community. Before the game kicked off, there was a lot of debate. Will Krul or will Stecklenburg be the goalkeeper? Krul was picked in one of the opening kind of warm-up games, and so people thought that he was going to be in there, and there was a flood of people transferring him in. Then Stecklenburg, De Boer comes out the day before this match and said, he is going to be my number 1. So a lot of teams were in the ruins already. But then looking at the team as well, De Lee was left out and Winyao was benched. So adding even more worry for me that the defensive backline is not settled. But focusing onto the match then, and this kind of cemented for me the fact that I won't be looking at defensive individuals from the Netherlands, apart from maybe one who we get onto in just a second. But the deadlock was broken early in the second half. Wijnaldum was fantastic and he looked so good, but it was a goalkeeping mistake that kind of let him in. And then it sparked this goal fest. So thank you so much for the goalkeeper for almost making that mistake and giving us the gift of this game. The standout player, though, from the Dutch game probably was a defensive one. An early opportunity from Dumfries really set the tone of what kind of game he was going to have. He had a 0.4 XG shot. Through the match, he had been busy with so much involvement in the attack. He was almost like Spinazzola, somebody that you can look at as an auxiliary attacking winger. He had high involvements with attacks, and that was rewarded because he had 3 shots in the box, 0.83 XG, and obviously scored the last minute winner. So for Dumfries, if he keeps his place in the squad, and this is the big worry for me, is I don't think many people are safe in that back line. We kind of saw Dele inexplicably dropped, Wijnaldum inexplicably not on the pitch. So I'm really not sure in terms of who you can trust there. That's why I would say Wijnaldum and Memphis Depay are the best picks, but maybe Wijnaldum is the best pick of the bunch. He was integral in attack, arguably the best attacking player, so not including the defenders in there as well. He had 3 shots in the box, 0.46 XG, and I think it was almost like a total comparison to the way that Depay played. The team themselves managed to create a good amount of opportunities, 11 chances, 2 big, but they will be worried at how leaky they were to a combative attack force. Ukraine were physical, they were quite quick on the counter-attack, and so I think that this is something that I mentioned with Spain as well, that these teams seem to be able to play beautiful, wonderful football, but when it gets a little bit tough and there's more balls played over the top, especially when the defence is not settled and the team, before the competition kicked off, they were experimenting with a 5 at the back. I think that there was a little bit of cause for unrest there. And so when you don't have that settled side, maybe these opportunities do allow goals like we saw with Ukraine. So I'm really not backing too many clean sheets for this Dutch side. The final point I want to get onto is actually Depay himself. He was quite a disappointment in this game. He only had 0.14 XG, 1 shot in the box. He seemed to be more of a creative outlet in this game with 3 chances created and a 0.25 XA. I'm still going to trust in him. He's got some great games coming up next. Obviously, North Macedonia and then Austria are up in the mix over the next 2 games. So he's not one that I would say transfer out at all. But in terms of his data, it just showed that he had a bit of a quiet one. Bit almost like Harry Kane. The quality is there. They will get the opportunities in maybe some later games. So keep the faith. But it's just something to monitor as well as going forward if they might be worth having in your team post group stage. They might not be as involved as you once thought. But I would say Wijnaldum is a fantastic own. So that is the end of the analysis there. I hope you've enjoyed this. We do have a first video up in terms of game day 1 with the 4 fixtures there. I threw in the Turkey and Italy analysis into that first one. And this is game day 2. As I stated at the start of the show, this is going to be a daily thing so that you can keep up to date with the most important data. And then before we move into the next match day, so match day 2 with the second round of group fixtures, we will do an in-depth analysis for you and Ben will be joining me for those. But for now, I hope that this has been useful, that it has given you some insights and maybe some considerations going forward for maybe transfers in your teams. But for now, I'm just going to remind you, please do subscribe to the channel, comment below. If you've got any data requests as well, do send them to me and I will endeavour to get them answered. But for now, good luck and enjoy these Euros.